where I want to bring it back over to the analyst, because I think we're going to get a better look at movement inside of the storm when we look at it from this view. And sure enough, Mark, there's a lot going on here.
It really is a complicated one. You know, if you're trying to just look at where the greens and the reds come together, this is where you get into radar analysis. But I will tell you, what you see prevalent here is that there are definitely some damaging and even potentially destructive winds here. What we look for is we have a little rotation here that is just to the west of the Caneyville area. We've got some rotation here that is south of the Western Kentucky Parkway near the Horace Branch area. So that would be south of the Parkway by around a half of a mile. And then we just got a new radar scan. And as somebody that analyzes radar and did this for graduate work when I was in college, it is probably my favorite thing to do. So here, when one of the things we do when we analyze radar is we always have to know where the radar is. Why? The radar cannot see rotation. And you're like, wait a minute, Mark, you just said that the radar is indicating rotation. All it can tell is if things are moving towards it or away from it. This is based on what we call Doppler Shift. It was kind of something discovered many, many years ago, but if you kind of ever wonder what Doppler Shift is, have you ever heard when you're on the highway, ambulance coming towards you, and you'll notice it gets really loud as it's approaching you, and right when it goes by you, it gets silent. We use that same process with radars to be able to tell if the wind is blowing towards it or away from it. So the beginning of analysis is where's the radar, and then that gives us the ability. So the radar is up here. So we're looking for the reds and the greens to be co-located in this geometry. So there's one of those areas west of Caneyville. There's one that's about 4 miles west of Caneyville. I would say, and also one that's about 4 miles south of Caneyville. The bottom line here is you have multiple areas of rotation. I'd like to see if we could briefly reflectivity on here as well, just so I can make an assessment of what I'm looking at and make sure that rotation matches up well. So here is our hail core. Hannah kind of alluded to and spoke to that and why that's a concern. And so that means that air is rising a little bit quicker right now. She puts a marker on that for us. What that's basically doing is helping us co-locate where the rotation is. So I would be concerned right now, Caneyville, an area of rotation coming in, and these multiple little waves of rotation moving in. It speaks to what we're going to have to deal with tonight. Quick spin-ups will be possible in multiple areas along the line. And we can deal with this in one of two ways, which we will be doing, but we're going to have severe with tornado possible, and we will have tornado warnings at time. Notice we still have a severe thunderstorm warning here for Jackson County in Indiana. Also, that extends towards Jennings County. Remember, that has been an elevated severe thunderstorm warning with 70. Louisville, what are we talking about? Well, notice now that line is starting to get itself a little bit better organized. Hannah, I still have some concerns on that forward line, what looks like a minor tail end Charlie that may be in the southern part of Breckenridge County. That one we need to be worried about for Hardin County and also for around Bullitt County. But that merger is getting close to occurring between those two. Once that merger occurs, I think we need to be aware of the fact that we might get a touch up in rotation here. So I would think we need to watch along the western and then ultimately bluegrass, but I think we also need to be aware of that storm that's just south of Irvington by 6 miles. These are things that we're kind of talking about potential as move. The immediate threat right now would be Grayson County, but as noted, there is going to be multiple areas of rotation along this whole line. And on top of that, there's going to be some 70-mile-an-hour winds. So we've got our issues that we're going to deal with tonight. You know, the thing was, Hannah alluded to this and talked about this. There's not really an unexpected in this. We kind of felt that this was a good candidate. Anytime we get sun late in the day, Hannah, especially when we have wind energy, it almost always evolves into a problem.
Almost always. You've got the wind support that gives you the, well, support, for lack of a better word. It lets those storms grow taller without shredding them, because you got to balance that. So we had storm energy, we had that wind support, and then as you guys know, you told us on social media all afternoon, the sun came out. Now I know I really need to pay attention to the weather today. And we're so thankful that you did and that you're with us now, making sure that you have the information that you need. So right now you're zoomed in close on that tornado warning, but I want to flip this over to velocity because, Mark, I think there are a couple of spots here that we need to pay attention to.
There are so many subtle areas of rotation. The problem is within a 4-minute scan, It takes about 3 minutes in this particular case because we're in high resolution mode from the Weather Service. But you can get rotation that comes up and goes down really quickly, and that hail core is still very, very notable near the Jugville area, and that may have actually intensified.
Yeah.
What I think we're probably seeing is that the hail that we had seen aloft in the radar is now starting to fall down to the ground even a little bit more. But hail fallout is also something that might now change the game a little bit. If hail fallout's occurring, that might take the intensity down. But look, you also now seeing that other storm near Hudson maybe taking a trend upward just a little bit as we're now getting a hail core there showing up as well. Hannah, you're looking at what we call the 3D. This allows you to view around a storm. I think that we all agree it looks kind of cool. But still, it's something that is important when we talk about potential. So we have another tornado warning that has now been issued. I'm going to go back over quickly to our regular radar here. So now we have multiple tornado warnings issued. This is exactly what we were concerned about evolving today. Bryce, you have eyes on that. What is the Weather Service giving us in terms of indication on this new tornado warning? And this one now includes the Litchfield area. If you're in Grayson County and Litchfield, you need to be listening.
Yeah, exactly. This includes Butler, Edmondson, Grayson, Hardin, and Hart County. And again, it's just moving east at 45 miles an hour. Again, capable of producing tornado located 9 miles southwest of the Litchfield area. So again, if you are now in Millerstown, even in Sunfish and further out into eastern Grayson County, you need to go ahead and be in your tornado safe place. You've got plenty of lead time now to get into your tornado safe place if this tornado, again, radar indicated, not confirmed on the ground right now, did end up dropping real quick and did some damage. You would already be in your tornado safe place because you have plenty of lead time across your area. So we've got two warnings that we're watching, one of them moving near the Caneyville area and about to move just north of Litchfield. This one that's just south of it is going to be moving south of Litchfield into Millerstown here soon.
And Hannah's been looking at some of the areas that we have seen in terms of hail. I've kind of been watching you working, Hannah, on the analyst, but this graphic here is kind of a crazy one to look at. What does it mean?
This is one of the coolest things that we have access to here in the weather department. This is a really great way to literally look inside of a storm. So the dark purple red color that you're seeing here, that is the hail core inside of the storm. We just talked to you about that hail core growing and it's producing hail the size of a quarter, and this is the reason we know there's strong vertical motion in the storm, but here it is. This is the structure of the storm. You've got kind of these lighter, more translucent colors showing you where the cloud is, where there's rain falling, but then you see this really solid coloring here, that red, purplish maroon color. That's where we're seeing hail develop inside of this storm. It's falling out, reaching us here at the ground about the size of a quarter, a little bit smaller than that in a couple of instances. We've got 2 tornado warnings. That's an imminent threat that this storm can produce a tornado at any moment. We've been watching those quick spin-ups, but don't lose sight of hail as a threat. If you park outside, you know how much damage hail can do in just a moment. And so Mark's drawing an arrow to this one area of rotation, which in my humble opinion is why we got a second warning, because it's just outside of that first box. The first warning we had is the one to the north. This is the second warning box we got that includes part of Litchfield. And I know the folks watching in Litchfield are really dedicated to watching the weather. So you guys, make sure you're sending us reports of what you hear. You need to be in your safe place. You have this active tornado warning for your area. But as you hear the rain, the wind move past you, send us those reports so we know what's going on there with that ground truth. Again, you've got the reds next to the greens, but they bend. They bend in. This kind of looks like a curve, almost a snake. That's where we're seeing some of that rotation. Now, you guys are looking a little bit more inside of that storm, more intently at the 2 panels here. Mark, what can you tell us that you're seeing there?
So I will tell you, number one, the rotation area is one of the tighter we have seen that is south of Caneyville right now. That we need to watch very closely. I'm not seeing, let me make sure that I don't see anything there that concerns me. No, I'm not seeing any debris being lofted now. But what's different about that area of rotation, at least prior to the current scan, is that it was gate to gate. It's still there. And it's still near the Annetta area, but the intensity is not overly high, Bryce. That's one of the things here. Yes, it's rotating, but I think since it's gate to gate, we got to be really aware, because if that comes up just a touch, you can get a tornado on this.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we look a little bit closer, it's not going to take much for this to spin up real quick. And as Mark mentioned, we're not talking Dawson Springs, Mayfield, these huge long track tornadoes. We're looking for more of these spin-ups that we've been talking about the past couple of days, and you can kind of see that with those reds and greens getting a little bit closer, and where Mark put a marker there. And as we look at correlation coefficients, I mentioned we're not seeing any debris being lofted in the air, but it's still definitely worthy to keep our eye on since we now have 2 separate tornado warnings. Can we put a storm track out on this one for the folks downstream? Again, you guys have plenty of lead time ahead of this storm. If you are anywhere in this tornado box, you need to go ahead and be your tornado safe place. That's at the center of your home, the lowest floor. Put as many walls between you and the outside as possible. So again, here's our next storm track as it continues to move off to the east. Litchfield, you got about 8 minutes. That's going to move into the southern half of Litchfield. Clarkson, you got about 14. Millerstown, I've mentioned you guys for the past couple of minutes. You got roughly about 20 minutes. This thing is still booking it off to the east. And what did we say, 45 miles an hour? At about 45 miles an hour. So once again, 2 separate tornado warnings. If you're anywhere in the Litchfield area, you should be in your tornado safe place already. And again, you look at the bigger picture here, this is where we've been most concerned about, what we've been talking about, because you've got a lot more favorable environment where you've seen more dryness throughout the day and the afternoon especially, and you've seen sunshine that has helped this atmosphere become a little bit more unstable. And now that these 2 lines have kind of merged to our southern communities, those are where we're kind of watching for those tornado warnings to continue. So once again, if we can flip back to velocity again and take a little bit of a closer look, again, we're not seeing any super tight couplet down near the Litchfield area, but we are watching these reds and greens getting, well, close to each other, and they're quick spin-ups. And you can see a little bit of that right here, just along Highway 187, continuing to push off to the northeast. It's going to be moving north of Meredith, again, south of Litchfield and south of the Western Kentucky Parkways. Again, Mark and Hannah are taking a look at this once again, watching to see if we see this rotation tighten up any more as that continues to push off to the northeast. Again, I mentioned north of Meredith, even further past that, moving over Highway 88 here within the next, I'd say, 10, 15 minutes or so, maybe even sooner. You need to be in your tornado safe place because you can tell there is some rotation here just along Highway 187. Meredith, you got about 12 minutes. Johnson Crossroads 15, Snap 19, and Spike 26. So once again, Mark's keeping a look at this, keeping an eye on this as well. You got any new updates for us, Mark?
You know, I'll tell you, some of the things that we're seeing that are really interesting on this, you'll notice that there is these very odd lines that are going outward from the radar, and it's kind of like, what are those? Those are what we refer to as hail spikes. Hannah, when we see these lines like this, of these basically channels where we have that lower value, that is actually hail being picked up by the radar, and you can see how it drops it in spikes outward. It's really, that's hail. I mean, it's not like a maybe.
Right, it's fascinating to see this because you've got the hail core showing up on this side where I'm standing now. It's these brighter colors right underneath the banner. That's where the hail is forming inside of this storm. But then because the radar is looking beyond it, you get these kind of spikes, we literally call them hail spikes, that show up in the data like this. So this is in the correlation coefficient. We would normally look here for damage. Yeah, Mark, what are you seeing?
Just got a viewer email, by the way, that she is saying that she is seeing a tornado touchdown right now in the Caneyville area. So she said that she saw a tornado touchdown. That could be conceivably what was there a little bit earlier. She sent in a picture, a little bit difficult to see, but Hannah, I can tell you there is definitely a lowering within that storm for sure. So I didn't want to interrupt you there, but just again, a report from a viewer. Michaela just reported a tornado touchdown in the Caneyville area. She said it looked like it was on the ground. This is going to be the area we need to watch along the Western and Bluegrass Parkways. This will continue to be our area of concern. And Hannah, I think as we look at radar right now, that initial area near Caneyville doesn't look as strong as it once does. I think that southern area of rotation may be taking over.
I think it may be taking over. So we're seeing this storm evolve in real time. Right now, you've got a track on that storm right now, and you can see Meredith about 10 minutes away. These are communities that Bryce just called out, but that rotation area that we just talked about, you're also seeing bright colors in the reflectivity. We call that high reflectivity. Now we're putting that rotation on it. It's hard so far away from the radar sight to call it reds right next to greens. So you're looking for differences along this line. Where do you see really bright green next to a darker green color? Well, right here. You can see a couple of those spots where we're seeing at least strong wind, potentially some rotation along that line. And this is now on the leading edge of that tornado warning. So Mark's report from Caneyville is concerning. We want to keep a very close eye on the storm now as it's pushing out of that tornado, the first tornado warning into the second. That's something we want to watch very closely. Now, you guys are watching our analyst computer, but have you heard anything recently from the National Weather Service?
Well, the Michaela report is the one that, at least that there's definitely been a lowering on this storm. Outside of that, Weather Service is still continuing with severe thunderstorm, warning with tornado possible, and you can see how the line is now taking on that bowing appearance. That is always a concern of very strong winds, so we need to be thinking about Munfordville, Magnolia, Greensburg, Campbellsville, Lebanon. Along and south of the parkways, it has been quite consistent right now. That's where the potential exists for 70-mile-per-hour winds. So, we don't want to hyper-focus only on the tornado warning, because now we also have a warning that includes western parts of Louisville. So Louisville is now under a severe thunderstorm warning. Let me say that one more time. Louisville, you are now under a severe thunderstorm warning, and I want to be 100% clear on this, Louisville. This is not for 60-mile-an-hour winds. This is for 70. 70 are destructive winds. These are the kind that can damage your roof, damage shingles, can take down trees. Power lines can be damaged. This is until 8:15. Severe thunderstorm with tornado possible, and we continue to watch through more areas here. Hannah, this is kind of an updated one here for the metro area.
That is an update for the metro. We are keeping a very close eye on the southern storm, again, that we were just, Mark, what's up?
No, I was just telling Bryce, we're going to start to move our cameras around here, Hannah.
Okay.
We're going to make sure that we can get views from there. So let the guys in the control room know. Elizabethtown is a camera we're probably going to be looking at here shortly as we get that aimed to the west. And then Louisville, we're going to do the same.
Well, we've got a camera in Hardin County that I want to ask if we can pull up. It's a traffic camera on the Western Kentucky Parkway. Rod, can you remind me, 25 miles from Litchfield? Okay, so that's what you guys are looking at here. That banner's really helpful. So this is the view in Hardin County right now. And Mark, I'd love for you to look at this with me and just kind of talk out loud about what you see here. So in the very middle of your image, like in the center here, you're seeing kind of some lighter coloring. It just looks kind of fuzzy, faded right here. This is rain that we're seeing fall out of these clouds. But then obviously on the other side of the camera view here, you've got these darker clouds, darker rain falling here. What I don't see, and Mark, feel free to chime in here, I don't see this lowering. I don't see any part of this that looks like it's real smooth that would suggest that it's rotating or spinning. So I don't think we're seeing anything tornadic here. Mark, what do you see here?
So when I look at that, as a storm chaser, obviously is something that I did for a really long time. Number one, what you notice is that if we could stay with that, what you notice is that the cloud base is pretty high on the front edge of that, which kind of makes sense. I also kind of noted this a little bit earlier, that it's more difficult to get a tornado to come down to the ground when you have a higher cloud base like we have on this right now. Clearly on the right is just kind of a non-severe area, but on the left it gets darker. We're going to see as that approaches and it gets closer to the camera, but I would say right now there's nothing there that indicates tornado to me, and in fact seeing that higher cloud base is a positive thing. Looking at some of the data here, we still have a scenario where our best fuel, and it is all surface based, remains along and south of the parkways. We have multiple warnings that are going on across our area, and what I want to do here is focus first on the tornado warnings. And then we're going to move our way up the line because there's more than just the tornado warnings. And these are elevated severe thunderstorm warnings that absolutely require attention. The tornado warning has been extended now to include Hardin County. So we have the tornado warnings for Grayson and Hardin. If there was a tornado, is going to be 4 miles towards the southeast of the Litchfield area, and there may be some rotation. I would tell you I'm most concerned about this right here because the greens and the reds are really close on these couple of areas if there's a tornado to occur. So Millerstown, you've got to be in your tornado safe spot right now. Downstairs, underneath something, I need you in the center part of the house, and I need you to keep away from windows. You need as many walls between you and what could be at minimum 70-mile-an-hour winds, but could be a tornado. And the other thing that is somewhat concerning here is we're now starting to see a little bit of a surge on this, a little bit of a hook starting to develop. This is also an indication on radar that rotation may be coming up. Moving up that line, potential for 70-mile-an-hour winds are also possible here as we go further to the north. And Hannah, this is going to ultimately be getting into into Louisville. So in Brandenburg right now, 70-mile-an-hour winds could be occurring. That's approaching the radar site, and then ultimately towards the PRP area. Hannah, you've got something that you're looking at?
And I got a lot of things I want to draw everybody's attention to. So
Okay.
first, we've got some reports via the National Weather Service. These come in from trained spotters, from emergency managers, firefighters, police, sheriff, those sorts of things. So we've got a report in Litchfield, 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts and pea-sized hail. So that verifies this warning, what we're seeing as we look a little bit farther south into Litchfield. Strong wind gusts, pea-sized hail in those spots. That also tells us that as this storm farther to the north works its way toward Louisville,
Yeah,
you should
absolutely.
be prepared for that. 60 to 70-mile-per-hour gusts are totally possible. Now to our friends in the control room, can we take the Weather Pix computer? The camera in E-Town looks fascinating. And again, I want Mark, you and Bryce too, because you've done some storm chasing as well. I want you guys to share just kind of what you see here. So this is our camera in E-Town.
So minimum, we're looking at a shelf there that's a lowering. Normally, if that was to transition to a tornado, we would look for an additional lowering below that. But you can see now a very different scenario there. In the foreground, you'll notice the cloud base is notably higher. From our Hardin County camera, which is atop of Hardin Memorial right now in Elizabethtown, you can see that lowering approaching. Bryce, we have to watch that really closely. If a tornado were to form, we would watch that left area. You've done a little bit of chasing yourself. The lowering changes things. This is the area you have to watch, and our elevation on that camera gives us an excellent view to determine what's occurring. I don't see something right now that says tornado, but I do see with that lowering a concern.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can see it right there from our tower cam. It's obvious with that mean-looking shelf cloud. Right in the center of that camera is that lowering that he's talking about. And I want to draw attention to kind of a little bit of a notch here. I'm just going to keep my eye on. We're not seeing extremely tight rotation. There is some rotation in that, though, moving toward the St. John area.
That appendage.
That's just west of E-Town. So we're going to have to keep an eye on this because this has appeared in the past couple radar scans. If we go back a couple scans here,
it's a good catch.
You'll notice it kind of wraps and wraps. So we're going to really watch this area right here. And you can kind of even see it hooking on reflectivity.
Right, and there's a hail core there as well, which we kind of talked about a couple of times. That means air is rising a little bit stronger. This is that storm that we referred to a little bit earlier as that tail end. This is the line that formed out in front, that merger now between the back line and the front starting to occur. I think you're catching on to something, and I think we need to watch that storm really closely. We've got a good view on all of these storms right now approaching the Rhineyville area. Hail to the size of 1 inch is possible within that. And then again, we need to speak to Louisville, where the storms are now approaching Louisville. I really want to be clear on this. We're not talking about low-end winds on this warning here. This is moving right over the radar site. Bryce, if you could on analysts, I'm curious because we're so close to the ground, we really will be able to see exactly what the wind potential here is. If you could, let's go back over to single panel, because I really want to look at that view of single panel on that wind velocity as we look around the radar site here. Let's go a little bit further to the north, and I'm going to come over to analyst here. Those gates right there, what are those dark blues? Those have to be 65 plus. There's a couple of dark blues here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're looking at this has an 87 knot wind speed. And I mean, and this is only roughly 200 feet off the ground since you're closer to the radar.
There's definitely some concern here that we may be able to exceed 70. That very, very, very concerning here. The fact that we're seeing some of these high gates, okay, we just got a new radar scan here. So the good news is I'm not seeing any of those dark blues. We're talking about winds that are about 300 feet above the ground. So this is going to be very good to verify to ground truth. In those blues there, what are we seeing on there? So there is one gate that's 80, but I think that may be a polluted. Yeah. Even if we kind of sample some of these others, that's a 69 knot gate there. And Bryce, that's 184 feet off the ground.
Exactly.
So in West Point, we're not saying you might get strong winds. We're saying 70s are legitimately occurring. And if you remember a couple of weeks ago...
This is nearly the same area that saw those damaging winds that came through a couple weeks ago. And
100%.
The thing is, the closer you get to the radar beam is kind of angled up. So the closer you get to the radar, the closer you're technically looking to the ground, or exactly where the radar is above the surface. And as Mark mentioned, this is roughly 200, 300 feet above the ground, which is not that high when you really think of it.
Exactly.
And our tower cams around the area are picking up on crazy lightning shows as well along with this. So you've got multiple hazards you need to be thinking of here. Number one, heading into the West Point area, you've got major strong wind gusts here, over 60, 70 mile per hour wind gusts. And if you look at that picture right below us here, I mean, that is lowering, and that's moving toward the E-Town area.
Right, so that's our camera in E-Town at Hard Memorial. The one on the right-hand side, lower right-hand of your screen, that's our camera in Floyd's Knobs.
Okay.
That's the highest camera that
There's
we've
the
got
lightning.
because it's up on the hill, so that's where you're seeing a lot of lightning. That's also where we're going to watch this storm as it crosses toward Louisville. We've
That
got an
shelf is
excellent view
menacing.
there.
Yeah, it is.
So that's what we're watching here. We've got several other cameras around the area that we're keeping a close eye on, in addition to the radar display that you're seeing here. So when that storm moves in view, we're going to bring it to you.
And obviously, you know, you can see the lightning strikes. This is legit. 70-mile-an-hour winds are the kind of winds that take down trees and power lines here. And so if we can let our newsroom know that they need to be aware of the LG&E outages along and south of basically the Gene Snyder, because those really strong winds are approaching Metro Louisville now. You can see the excessive lightning strikes there on the left on our camera that is in Hardin Memorial, looking towards E-Town. So what will happen when that goes by is you will see an increase in the winds. I think at minimum we're probably talking some 60 to 70s. We also have the tornado warn part of this line, and then you can see on the right is our camera from the knobs. That camera is viewing the storms that are approaching into Louisville. You know, Hannah, you watched the data with me all day today.
Yep.
This is exactly what we were expecting and exactly what was showing up in the data. As those lines merged, concern is growing and increasing. One of the things with rotation, if we were to see a tornado in Elizabethtown, I do believe that we're talking about a shelf that is on that screen right there in Elizabethtown. So if there's rotation, it is likely buried. And I think that's one thing to note here, Bryce. You're probably, you know, I would never tell somebody ever to be looking at a storm. It's a dangerous idea. But to make it worse, it's embedded.
Yeah,
and so the areas of rotation are embedded within the storm. You're not going to see anything. No. I just tell you because if you attempt it, you're putting yourself in danger regardless. But in this particular case, you're not going to see anything.
Exactly. And look, I've been guilty of this growing up. Obviously, I caught the weather bug when I was little. I want to go out and see it, right? You want to go out and see it. People around here especially are fascinated with that. Dads, this is not a case where you're going to go out, step on the front porch and look for it. You're not going to see anything. These are embedded in the storm, as Mark mentioned. They're embedded in extremely heavy rainfall, 70-plus mile-an-hour winds, so we've seen near the West Point and Muldraw area. So again, you're not going to be able to see this. You are better off staying inside and honestly in your safe place regardless. We've got obviously lightning going crazy on our tower cams. I want to note back toward the E-Town area once again. Here on radar, because we were looking at that kind of mean-looking shelf cloud and a little bit of that lowering here, moving into the E-Town area. If we can pull up velocity once again, you've got, again, hail core just northwest of E-Town.
I don't like that.
Yeah, exactly. And we're seeing these reds and greens kind of becoming a little bit closer to each other over the Rhineyville area. You've got multiple instances, Mark, kind of like Hannah mentioned earlier, kind of look like a bit of a complicated mess.
The whole thing is rotating.
Yeah, exactly. This entire thing is rotating near Cecilia, moving toward Rhineyville, and about to move toward E-Town. That's about to cross over I-65 as it continues to push off to the east. And you've got multiple areas where you can see this kind of wrapping in on each other as Mark and Hannah are pointing this out with the arrows. You've got rotation over Longview, just northeast of Cecilia. That's going to move through the northern half of E-Town and over Rhineyville as well. And we still have a severe thunderstorm warning on this, but we're going to have to keep an eye on this one. Because
and remember, many of these are tornado possible too, Bryce.
Yes, exactly. So they have, the National Weather Service sometimes can add a tornado possible on a severe thunderstorm warning because it's capable of producing a tornado, which is exactly what we're seeing closer to the E-Town area right now. And even further down to the south, east of Litchfield and moving eastward, east of Grayson County, we still have that tornado warning going out through just west of Hodgensville and Magnolia once again. You can still see kind of that Boeing segment. It's signifying that strong straight line wind gusts. So even outside of a tornado threat, you're going to have near hurricane strength wind gusts across the area. Of course, it doesn't last as long, but regardless, wind gusts can still do damage just like tornadoes can. Mark, you got something new for us?
Well, we've been looking at that camera. Hannah and I have been talking about this, but that camera that's along the Western Kentucky Parkway, we kind of are curious to see now because that area of rotation is quickly approaching. We're going to come into Louisville here momentarily as well because I really want you to note that we're talking about potential severe thunderstorm with a tornado possible tag. But Hannah, there we go. Along the Western Kentucky Parkway, on the left there, you can start to see a little bit of light.
Yep.
That may be the lowering that we've been watching for. It's definitely, that's something that you can see it is definitely a lower appearance to that. As far as rotation is concerned, this is Hannah's eyeing in on the Millerstown area. Hannah, the rotation on this, I think, was a little bit better earlier.
Yep.
But, we've seen the pulses here. Yeah. We may have one scan that looks okay, next scan that goes downhill. But at least right now, that rotation looks a little bit lighter than it did when it was further west south of the Litchfield area.
Yeah, I think we're probably seeing this section outside Wheeler's Mill pushing toward Bonneville. It's maybe pushing out a little bit ahead of the rest of the line, so some stronger wind gusts there. You've heard us call that a bowing before, pushing out ahead of the line. So I think the wind is really picking up there. Mark, you have a report from the Weather Service?
Yeah, so Hardin County just reported 62.7 mile an hour winds. So if we could double box to that Hardin County camera, I'd like to see that. But we just measured a 62.7 mile an hour wind in the Hardin County area. Then that is in near the Elizabethtown area. So E-Town, this is almost on top of you right now. There you go. So on radar, you can see on the right and you can see on the left, it is getting going. E-Town, look. I wish there weren't vehicles on the road there, but if you're in a structure, just stay away from the western side of those structures. If there was let's say a tree or something to get blown down, I think prevalent would be westerly winds. It would blow it into the western side of your structure. So the eastern side is always going to be a little bit safer. And remember that these are elevated severe thunderstorm warnings. I do want to address Louisville. We haven't spent a lot of time on Louisville, but we do have a severe thunderstorm warning with a tornado possible tag for Louisville. This is concerning. We need to be aware of what's going on in Louisville as well. And so now we're going to spend some time on where the greatest threat for Louisville is. A couple things you'll notice. 1-inch size hail is going to be possible in the Louisville area. That would be the main threat of that hail, in my opinion, is going to be outside of the Watterson Expressway. But that said, just real talk here. There is some concern because we're getting this little notch here developing near Louisville. The value that we have here, since the radar is so close to Louisville, is we're able to see very, very close to the ground. So of concern here, originally we were talking about blue. Now we have some of these bright pinks. So you'll notice as we look towards PRP, they're not as bright there. You'll notice along the Jefferson-Bullitt County line, those winds are stronger. They're brighter. These are in the neighborhood, and Hannah, if we can just check some of these gates, but I believe based on what I'm seeing, those look close to 65 knot, which would be near 70 miles an hour. Some of these gates here, you could see a 54 showing up there as well. And then you'll notice on the northern, we're not seeing as strong. Bryce, you've got a little bit of information?
Yeah, if we can throw control room over to Weather Pics. We've got a picture sent in from Donna Hayes here. This is near Vine Grove. That's near the Radcliffe area. You've got significant lowering there. Again, we don't want anybody to be outside in this, but that is an excellent shot that Donna has sent in from the Vine Grove area. Again, that's near the Radcliffe area, that storm that we were watching a few minutes ago, Mark.
And keep an eye on that here. So just so you understand what we're looking at, when a thunderstorm starts to rotate, what it will generate is what we call a mesocyclone. Now that mesocyclone will then morph into what's called, if we could stay with Weather Pics, is that can we punch that at the wall or no? If we can, I just want to kind of go back to that picture briefly. If we can't, I'll just step out. Okay, so what you will notice here is this is the wall cloud. It actually drops down from the thunderstorm. Now, what a lot of people would think is that's a tornado. No, that's not. That's a wall cloud. Now, if a tornado were to form, we would need to see that interaction below that cloud base, which is right here, and how it touches the ground. Is there a funnel that drops down there and touches to the ground? Bryce, if we could, let's keep a real close eye on Weather Pics and continue to monitor. Bryce is going to monitor our social side and also keep our cameras aimed where they need to be, because now with this coming into a lot of our area that is, along 65, we've got some great concerns here. Elizabethtown camera is going to be behind me as you continue to watch that. Again, spending a little bit of more tracking time here through Louisville. Northern Bullitt and Southern Jefferson, we definitely need to watch here closely. I'm very concerned about in Bullitt County right now. So Southern Jefferson, Northern Bullitt, I think I said that correctly. If I didn't, Northern Bullitt, Southern Jefferson, there are definitely going to be some near 70 mile an hour wind gusts. Also coming through Elizabethtown right now, 60 to 70 mile per hour winds. Remember, we have already seen a 63.7 mile an hour wind in the Elizabethtown area. And what Hannah is doing is she is thinking exactly as I am. And one of the things I really love about my team, True story here. We kind of joke about it. We call ourselves family because we can always we really read each other's mind well. I think it's maybe because we spend too much time together. I'm just saying, Hannah and Bryce, we're probably around each other too much, but you definitely grow as you start to look at radar. And I can tell you there's almost a little bit of a competition on my team where we are always eyeballing radar and always trying to check for whether there is damage, whether something's going on. But Hannah, I think you were thinking about exactly what I was thinking, and let's track the storm through Louisville. So this puts it in PRP 3 minutes from now, 14 minutes from now in the Newburgh area. And Middletown, 25 minutes from now. So in these areas, Newburgh 14, Middletown 25, Crestwood, you need to be aware that I think we can do some 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts, but I think specifically as we get towards southern Jefferson, we can do near 70. Hannah, there remains that concern here. With that Boeing segment going on over southern Jefferson and northern Bullitt, we may be able to acquire some rotation in South Louisville.
Well, I want to try to use our cameras as much as we can this evening, even just to say what is happening here. This is not an area on radar where we're seeing much happen, but what's going on. And so we've got, there's a new warning that now includes Louisville.
Okay,
a severe thunderstorm warning was just issued. Again, that is that leveled up severe thunderstorm
70s.
Warning. Tornado possible, severe thunderstorm warning, tornado possible, 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts going into Louisville, the entire metro area. This is not just the East End. It's not just PRP. It's not just downtown. This is, if you live in Louisville, if you consider yourself to live in Louisville, this even includes J-Town on the other side of the river. Clarksville's right on the edge. If you live around Louisville, if your mailing address says Louisville, you are included in this severe thunderstorm warning, and it's a leveled up warning.
It is.
70-mile-per-hour wind gusts, tornado possible on this storm. So let's go ahead. Here you've got the New Albany camera. So this is in New Albany.
Wow.
Bryce, which way is this pointed? Which direction do you look at this?
That's pointing west. The New Albany's camera.
So that's looking towards the Sherman Mitten?
I think so.
Wow.
You can't see anything.
And then I've got the downtown camera pointing south.
It is. Okay, let's take downtown Louisville and see what we can see there. We also have the camera inflates. Knobs is showing tons of lightning here as well. We've got all kinds of pictures coming in here. We also have, I pitched this, I started this process here because there's a traffic camera.
Okay, look on the left there. Look on the left. So that's downtown.
That's from the 800
There's the
building
lowering. You
looking
can see the
south.
shelf on the bottom left. That's what I'm concerned about here in Louisville. If we could, let's take that Louisville camera full. That's concerning. Hannah, that is concerning. That's that area of rotation I've been talking about. You can actually see the updraft base there on the left carved out, Hannah. That is very impressive.
That is so impressive. So I want to show you, not everybody's a weather nerd like we are. What are we talking about here? So the lightning, first of all. The guys are moving the camera, zooming in a little bit. What I want to draw your attention to, anything that looks like a sharp line in nature, that's not right. So clearly this part of the storm is lower than this part of the storm. When we talk about lowering, this is part of the storm that has come down. It's closer to you. This is where tornadoes come from. The wall cloud lowers, it rotates. This is the part of the storm that will produce a tornado if any of it does.
Look
you
at
can
that.
also
There's
see
even
rain
a little
falling out of it. What, Mark?
Which just on the left there.
Yeah,
look
it's
on
a
the
little
appendage.
point out of it,
right on the edge of that wall cloud, Hannah.
Yep.
There may be a little bit of appendage there starting
Oh,
to.
you see this part right here.
Yes.
This,
yes.
Yep. This is where, I don't want to sound the alarm too early, but this is how tornadoes form. You get a little part that extends out of this wall cloud, this lowering.
Yes.
Yeah,
this is where you see
And that's
things
coming
start to
down a little
develop.
bit too.
It is. The whole thing is coming down. This, you're watching in real time, essentially a funnel being produced from this storm.
Yes, that we need to watch really, really closely. I'm going to move over to the weather wall real quickly as a storm chaser, so just so you understand how this works. Again, when we get rotation within a thunderstorm, the thunderstorm will generally start to lower the base. And so what you're looking at right here is the base lowering within that thunderstorm. This is actually the wall cloud. Now, if you watch when Hannah was pointing right here, we had a little bit of a funnel that was starting to drop down. We don't see that funnel now, so that is at least a little bit of a good sign. But the Weather Service is very justified and right in going severe thunderstorm with tornado possible, because these storms can and do produce tornadoes with little to no notice. Watching again here, right on that edge, we have seen little appendages starting to dive out there. And I would like to zoom out just a pinch here to see that. Basically, I'm trying to look underneath that to see if there's anything that we have in contact with the ground. As we look, I mean, obviously the camera's starting to shake as we're now getting the 60+ mile an hour winds moving into Louisville.
Yeah.
This is something we need to be aware of.
There it goes.
Yeah, it's
Another little
That same corner has that same
there it is. So now
appendage.
you can see the appendage coming back again. So right there on the edge of it, you can see that funnel forming again. Remember, I want to be 100% clear. I'm not telling you that a tornado is touching down. I am not. I am telling you that the wording tornado possible is fully justified by the National Weather Service. You can see right on the edge of that little funnel that's trying to drop off the edge of that lowering, which is the wall cloud. And now you can see the camera shaking very, very violently. I would like to also look back to the analyst. I want to look at velocity, and I want to look at if we're seeing any debris being lofted near Louisville, because we really need to be very careful now with this in Metro. If we could, guys, let's 2-box with this, because I want to make sure if we're seeing any power flashes, we can catch those. But Bryce, you have a little bit of information here to update us on?
We've got a traffic camera from, I think they said 65 at the Snyder, if we can pull that up there.
And let's keep this 2-boxed if we could with radar, and that way we can kind of make sure that we've got both views simultaneously.
Yeah, and that's kind of the area that we're watching there on the top left of your screen.
Okay.
So that's the 65 at Snyder, is that right?
Yes.
Rod?
65 at Gene Snyder. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is, yes. So you're basically looking towards Bullitt County in that particular image. And then you can see now we're starting to get polluted in our downtown camera because we have heavy rain that's ongoing. So ultimately, if we're continuing with traffic cams, guys, I want to be thinking about Preston, if there's a view looking south on that on the Gene Snyder, and then ultimately I want to be looking towards, let's say around Bardstown Road and Gene Snyder, so we can continue to keep an eye on what is going on. I want to now take a look radar here, if we could, for a moment, because I think it's important that we analyze what's occurring right now in Metro Louisville as we've got storms moving in. If we could take that full, and I want to get punched at the wall so I can kind of show what's going on here. So one of the things we're going to look at, I'm going to start here in the 2-box. This is your normal reflectivity. This is what you look at on radar every single day. So when we look at this side, you're like, Mark, everything's pink. Well, it should be. It's raining. So what we would look for is a blue hole if there was a tornado forming. There is nothing that shows tornado touchdown or anything like that in Louisville right now, which is really important. I want to be clear on that. But we've seen interesting appendages on that wall cloud at times in the metro area, Bryce.
So with our talks from the National Weather Service and the emergency management
strike here in are we still on air, guys? We just took a power hit here at the station. Okay, so we just took a power hit at the station. On air, I think you guys can still hear my voice. Okay. But we took a power hit at the station, so what we're doing here is making sure that we can reboot and get everything back up. But in our studio, we saw a big flash here. Some of our systems at least went down. That's why you're seeing black, but you're still hearing our voice. On air, Richard, are they able to see, or what are people seeing at home? Is it black?
No video, we have audio.
Okay, so we still have audio as we're trying to get things rehashed here. Bryce, back to you on that information that you've seen.
Yeah.
What's the Weather Service talking about?
So from the Hardin County Emergency Management Office, they called to report baseball-sized hail within the past 5 minutes.
Where?
Near the Radcliffe area.
Baseballs in Radcliffe.
At 313 in Rogersville Road. Ambulance had to stop because of the hail.
Okay, so we have baseballs now in Radcliffe. Baseballs in Radcliffe. We have near 70-mile-an-hour winds that are moving along the Gene Snyder. Again, I just want to let you guys know, we are aware that we've got the black on the screen right now. What we're doing is, since we took a power hit at the station, we got a lightning strike very close to the station. We're continuing to get things back up so that you guys can see what's ongoing right now. And just so Hannah and Bryce know, my guess is that when the power hit occurred, likely what that did is it knocked out our internet. So if it knocked out our internet, then that ultimately could mean that our data is a little bit slower. And we know that our power, our switcher, which on TV allows us to basically punch the graphics onto TV, is in a reboot mode after taking a power hit. We have numerous severe thunderstorm warnings, again, including the Louisville area, south. The reason you're seeing black, Hannah, is we took a power hit. You've been working in this business for many years as well.
But we're safe. I want to be clear about that.
Yeah, that's important to know.
We are safe here. People are going to wonder about that. I also want to tell you guys, if you've got a weather radar app on your phone, your WDRB weather app has that. If you've got a different weather app on your phone, open that up now, because that radar still works, and we can still see our radar here in the building. We just can't show it to you in this moment, so we are watching it closely. We are watching it closely here in the studio. There's strong wind. There's hail that's growing larger. We just told you about baseball-sized hail. I think that was in Radcliffe, Bryce. So we have active ongoing threats plus tornado warnings that we've been talking about most of the evening. This is an ongoing, evolving situation. Take this moment to open a weather app on your phone for the couple of minutes that we're showing you black screen. And I think we just got a new tornado warning. Again,
so multiple tornado warnings now issued here.
That's for a couple of counties.
Yeah, that's further off to the south. Tornado warning was just issued right now. This one is going to be for a bunch of counties: Greene, Hart, LaRue, Marion, and Nelson counties. New tornado warning just issued for a number of counties in our southern parts of our area. The issue remains is it is a rotation fest along this line. We've got an area rotation that is near the Mathers Hill Mills area, one that is to the west of Maxine, one that's near the Wabash area. All of these areas are seeing rotation. All of these areas are seeing rotation. So we need to be really careful as we continue here with new tornado warnings that are being issued. New tornado warnings continue to get issued along this line. Tornado warning in effect here in our southern counties. Tornado warning in effect in our southern counties. This one for LaRue, Marion, Nelson, and Washington County, also 1-inch size hail. What we're trying to do here behind the scenes here is make sure we get our systems up and working. Hannah, one of the things I just want to make sure on radar since we took that hit is when our last scan came in, because this is super important to note that these storms, because we took that power hit, could have moved ahead.
Yeah, this one looks like it's updating, and I'm being told that you guys can see this particular computer that we're working from. We in the studio cannot see that you are seeing that, so we're relying on our guys here, our camera operators, floor directors, to help us understand what you're seeing at home. So you can see, in theory, this tornado warning that was just issued. This is the new warning, an ongoing threat of tornadoes, plus that large hail that we just talked about. That report came in from Radcliffe. This is a little bit farther south of there, but an ongoing tornado warning. So let's go ahead and jump back to normal. We're going to interrogate this storm. We're going to settle into this new normal here this evening.
And just so I understand here, the computer that Hannah's on is the only one we have to air, right? Okay.
This one is the one going out
perfect.
on air. Yep.
Perfect. Okay.
Yep. So here we go. This is the new tornado warning. Again, we just told you where that is. So let's look at what's going on. Even on the velocity this far away from the radar, you can clearly see that something has gone wrong. Something is different here. The bright greens, followed by red, followed by more green. So this is an area where we are seeing rotation. It's just north. I'm looking at Mark's computer and my computer at the same time. Just north of Magnolia, we're seeing some of that. And so that makes me think that this might be a scan behind. My computer is scanned behind yours.
I'll tell you what is super concerning right now, beyond the tornado warning, if you're in Mount Washington, if you're in the southern part of Jefferson County, Glen Mary, you really, really, really need to be careful, guys. You really need to be careful. These gates are extremely strong right now. We're looking at 71-knot gates showing up 800 feet above the ground just to the east of Shepherdsville. This is really concerning, and this is the kind of wind that can do damage, Bryce, and I hate to say it, we're seeing it.
Yeah, we just got a storm report out of Breckenridge County, about 2 miles away west-northwest of Constantine. Emergency manager reports a roof blown off a home south of Custer. That was the time estimated by radar, around 7:42. So about 30 minutes ago, or 30, 40 minutes ago. So again, that's emergency management, and Breckenridge County reports a roof blown off a home south of Custer.
And let me be clear, guys, these are extremely strong winds right now moving along the Gene Snyder. Looking at radar, and I'm analyzing each individual gate that I'm looking at, I have 71.9, which is around knots, which is closing in on 77 miles an hour at 1,000 feet above the ground. That one is now along the Gene Snyder. This is about to hit just outside of the Gene Snyder on Bardstown Road. Another area is about to head into Mount Washington. I've got 73.8 knots, which is around 80 miles an hour, 1,000 feet above the ground. So ground level, that's probably going to be near 70. And then I've got another area that's about to cross Bardstown Road. That's going to be near where Bullitt County interacts with Spencer and Nelson County. And those gates there I'm seeing are peaking at around 71 knots, which is 77 miles miles an hour. So Hannah, this is not only tornado concern, there are multiple issues and concerns that we're looking at in our area with widespread severe weather occurring in our area and in Metro.
And in Metro, I want to redirect us back to the Louisville Metro, where we are seeing the strongest wind of the night move through right now. If you live on the East End, J-Town, St. Matthews, Middletown, Linden, up toward Oldham County, we're starting to see the strongest wind gusts of the night in those communities. You've not experienced anything like this tonight. This is the strongest wind. It's coming along with the heaviest rain. You're hearing thunder. You're seeing those lightning flashes. That's what's moving into the east end of Louisville right now. And as we go farther south, remember, we still have an ongoing tornado warning that does include Bardstown. You can see it reflected right here, that bright red color on your screen. We also have hail inside of this storm. That's worth mentioning as well. And Bryce, you've been watching what the Weather Service is sharing with us. Looks like a wind report there. What do you
Yeah,
got?
just got about a 53 knot wind gust report. That is at the Louisville airport.
Okay, so 53, just doing my quick math here, would come in at 61 miles an hour, just measured in Louisville. Here's the concerning part. That's further north than where we're seeing the strongest winds within the storm. I think it's safe to say, if you're along Bardstown Road right now, we need to really be concerned of 70, 75s right now.
Yeah.
This is a real concern outside of the Gene Snyder along Bardstown Road that we are seeing near 70-mile-per-hour winds. So there are multiple concerns here evolving across our area. I'm going to go down to the tornado warning here real quickly. Everything is rotating along that tornado warning. Everything. Just got a new scan in here. Okay, that may look a little bit better on the western edge. The area of rotation that I would be most concerned about is approaching the Stiles area. That's where you need to be in your tornado-safe location, right near Stiles. That ultimately would be heading towards around south of Howardstown, and then downstream Loretto. We need to be considering what to do here. This is, you know, the thing that really concerns me right now, it's not necessarily if new tornado warning for Louisville, new tornado warning just issued for Louisville. This is that area.
Watching.
Guys, if you are near Bardstown Road here in Louisville, if you're near Bardstown Road, just outside of the Gene Snyder, this is going to be near Glen Mary. We have got to take this very, very seriously. Hannah, you're looking at the analyst right now. You see nearly 90-mile-an-hour winds on that analyst, maybe 95.
95.
Are you seeing debris in that area? We really need to get in on that one really closely. I'm going to come over to the analyst with you. Do you see anything that concerns you in terms of debris in Louisville that would scream we have a tornado? I think that we could get one very quickly in this area.
I think we could get one very quickly, so I'm going to keep an eye on it. But at this point, Mark, no, I don't see that debris. So I just put a marker on the reflectivity, which is on the right-hand side of your screen, right where we're seeing that rotation, and you can see that same marker reflected on the left-hand side where we would see debris. And listen, I know that there's a lot of blue and green here, and we tell you to look for that blue spot, but it needs to be a small circle that shows a defined area of lowering in that correlation. This is just radar scattering. We usually call it radar debris, but that's not effective here. So all of that to say, I don't see it yet, but at any scan, I expect that could come up. So we're going to watch that very closely. And you guys can see how much this is wrapped in on itself, this rotation. That's alarming. And at the speeds we're talking about, Mark, I'll be honest, I grew up in Alabama, and then I lived in Mississippi. I've not seen speeds like this in a really long time.
Not in Metro. I mean, we don't, this is seriously concerning. And here's my best case scenario. My best case scenario is in the southern side of Louisville right now, 80-plus mile-an-hour winds could be occurring, and I honestly think that at least 70. That's my best case scenario. So the areas we really need to be concerned about, and I want to do a wider track on this, because there is such a large area of extremely strong winds. I'm going to need to actually take this out a little bit wider because these have been moving so quickly. But the speed on this, I assume, Hannah's,
It's 55.
The new update, yep.
This is not good. So we've got Fern Creek, it's on top of you, Simpsonville 19 minutes from now, and Shelbyville 29 minutes from now. Hannah, there is a very distinct area hook on that right now.
Not good.
Is that may be a debris signature. Can we check that real quickly on correlation coefficient? Very, very concerned, guys, in the around Billtown Road right now that a tornado could be forming right along Billtown Road along the Gene Snyder. You've got to be in your safe location right now if you're near Billtown Road. This rotation is significant. At best case scenario, I think we've got 80-mile-an-hour winds occurring there. Best case scenario, and this is crossing Billtown Road right now, it'll eventually go towards outside of the Gene Snyder near the Taylorsville Road area. Hannah, still, as I look at radar there and we view that correlation coefficient, I don't see something that says confirmed tornado right now, but I am just worried. There's a lot of at least nothing less debris getting blown around, which may be straight line winds.
Exactly.
But it's there.
It is there. So I agree. I want to see the next scan. We just talked about that. Bryce, you've got an update?
Okay, so we have a 72-mile-per-hour wind gust at the National Weather Service in South Louisville. That's near the Smyrna exit of the Gene Snyder.
Yeah, that's exactly
and
that
then
area.
the National Weather Service is discussing a possible TDS on radar in southeastern Jefferson County.
That's what we're
So if
talking
we can
about
get
right
another
now. So the
update on
Weather
that, yeah.
Service is watching exactly what we are watching right now. That's alarming. We want to keep a very close eye on that. I also want to flip this back over to reflectivity and velocity at the same time and walk it back one scan. So this is just one previous scan. A couple of moments ago, they did it. They went TDS.
Okay, guys, we got a
they went
tornado
TDS.
confirmed now in Louisville. Weather Service has moved over to tornado confirmed. Let me again be very clear. We have a tornado on the ground now confirmed by radar. It's observed on the warning here, 55 miles an hour. It's moving towards the northeast at 55. Latest information from the Weather Service on this. Let me be clear. A tornado, a damaging tornado is occurring in Louisville. A damaging tornado just moved over Bardstown Road, just outside of the Gene Snyder by 1 mile. It's about to move over Billtown Road, about 1 mile outside of the Gene Snyder. Ultimately, it'll go towards Taylorsville Road, 2 miles outside. A tornado confirmed now in Louisville, doing damage. We have a tornado confirmed in Louisville.
And I put this track on, well, that's a camera view. Let's go back one image here. So to get you the full track, because the storm is moving so fast, I know it's a little bit wider than you would like. I'll zoom in just a moment. The storm is moving to the northeast. A confirmed tornado that is doing damage is moving to the northeast at 55 miles an hour around the Louisville Metro. In Fisherville, you have about 5 minutes until that gets to your house. It is time to be in your safe place now. That's as many walls between you and the outside as you can, in the lowest level of your home. And you've got about 10 minutes if you're in the long run community. Simpsonville, this is close to you in about 15 minutes. And Todd's Point, you're still about 15 to 20 minutes away from you. I want to zoom in a little bit closer after we take this track away to show you exactly what is going on here. This is some of the strongest wind we've seen tonight. This is a confirmed tornado now, wrapped up in on itself. And we just got a new tornado warning, it looks like, that extends beyond this as well. Is that
So
right?
then that's a warning, just so we're clear. There's two different areas, and this is the problem. Hannah, we identified that area that was coming along southern Jefferson County,
Right.
but let's not just focus only on that area. The problem is that we're on the northern side of what's a Boeing segment.
Right.
Being on the northern side of that Boeing segment means that you're going to get rotation virtually everywhere. Weather Service is clearly aware of this, and they're going with tornado warnings now just north of Taylorsville by about 2 miles north of Taylorsville. But a confirmed tornado right now will be going along the Gene Snyder. If you have any friends that are out driving right now, they have got to get off the road if they're near the Gene Snyder, and we need to be very, very serious about I-64. This would be as we cross the Jefferson and Shelby County line. We have a confirmed tornado on the ground right now, observed, and then one that's just north of the Taylorsville area. It looks like we have now gotten some of our switcher back up. If we could, in my ear, guys, let me know when we can go back to the weather wall here.
Bryce, what are you seeing?
We're looking
Tell
at
us what you're
the
seeing.
Simpsonville Tower Cam. So we have a tower cam at the Louisville Golf Course in
Okay.
Simpsonville. It's getting dark, obviously, so it's hard to see. But with the flashes of lightning, there is significant lowering when the lightning kind of backlights the skyline once again.
We know it's dark. Give it a second.
So
This is
let's
worth
stay,
seeing.
if we could, with both. If we could, with the Simpsonville camera, so we can keep that hot in the corner, and let's go with radar on one side here. Hannah, I want to, if we could, track now. Again, remember, we took a power hit earlier, so what we have done is tried to get our switcher back up and working. Huge credit to our engineers and everybody at the station and production for going through this and getting out the other side here. Fisherville, 2 minutes from now. I need you in your safe spot, Fisherville. downstairs, underneath something. I need you in the center part of your house, and I need you to keep away from windows. We have a confirmed tornado on the ground, and these are important things to note here. Taylorsville, 3 minutes from now, a potential tornado. If you live in Taylorsville, get into the center of the house. If you're like, Mark, I don't have a basement, what am I going to do? Get in the center of the house. I have been surveying tornadoes now for close to 20 years. I am a forensic meteorologist that went out many times and surveyed damage, and I can tell you that one of the things we always see is the interior part of your home will almost always withstand even potential for tornado. Right over Fisherville right now, you've got to be in your tornado-safe location. This could be a tornado occurring right now, heading towards the Simpsonville area. Hannah, what do you have for us?
So the Weather Service they relay reports for us, Mark. So this, you got to take it with a grain of salt. But this is a report of a tornado in the J-Town area a couple of minutes ago from an EMS worker, all right?
And it makes sense. I mean, it's exactly where we're seeing that rotation, Hannah. I believe it. I really do. And so in Fisherville right now, you've got to be in your safe spot. I can't emphasize this enough. I don't say this all the time. I don't try to, when the time comes, we need to tell you it's more serious. I don't want you to think that we're talking about, there's tornado warning. We get this all the